Hey people, welcome to this episode of The Visionary Experience. In this episode, we are going to revisit the top 5 most helpful buyer tips in a seller's market. I feel like I could do this every year because it seems like for the past 3 years, right, it's been a seller's market, but I definitely hope you enjoy this.
1, 2. Imperial and Paradox reporting for you. Yes. You'll be alive on arrival. It's so vital, giving tribute to the vision of those this life cycle. To win against the system like Christ's disciples die.
All right, people. Again, welcome to this episode of The Visionary Experience. We're going to revisit the top 5 most helpful buyer tips in a seller's market, right? I think besides just somehow replicating a big boatload of cash or a truckload of cash and just dumping it on people's lawns, outside of that, I'm going to give you a few other tips that it's going to help you to get a home. Number one, let's dig right in. Number one, as a buyer, whether you're a first-time buyer or whether you are, you've owned a home before, it's important to have a very clear strategy and clear expectations. I cannot emphasize that enough. What does that basically mean? It means, look, think about what you want. Think about what you're getting into, and really think about the entire situation before you contact a realtor, before you get pre-approved, before you do anything at all. Have a clear strategy and clear expectations. What does that mean? It means know your time frame, your location, your rough, geography of where you want to purchase, and really figure out what are the most important non-negotiables for the home that you want. Okay. What does that do? That helps to prevent ambiguity. Okay. To prevent you swaying back and forth. Right. And if you do end up going under contract, it will also help to prevent buyer's remorse. Okay. So knowing your time frame, knowing your geography, your location, really having a short list of the most important non-negotiables also helps on your end to minimize frustration, right? Okay. And what this does is that this maximizes, your relaxation. It maximizes your focus and it maximizes your effectiveness when you're going out there to purchase a home when it is a difficult market. So let me just quickly break it down in case you don't understand what makes a seller's market versus a buyer's market. And I had mentioned this before in the previous podcast that we had done a while ago, but it's very simple macroeconomics. And basically you have what's called supply and demand. Okay. So when it comes to homes that you can purchase in this country, since there are a lot less homes available for sale, and a lot more buyers who want to go out and buy a house, okay, there is a certain tipping point that's taking place there. So the sellers have the advantage, okay, because it's a lot less of them and a lot more buyers. So as a result, economically, that drives up prices. How does that drive up prices? Basically, if you have 5 different families, okay, or 5 different individuals or whatever, who want to purchase the exact same property, and they all put offers on that property, what the seller can do now, the seller can choose the best one or the highest one or the one with the least contingencies or the least restrictions to it. Okay. And so when you have a buyer's agent that represents a buyer and a listing agent that represents the seller, what they normally communicate is, okay, yeah, there are multiple offers on this property, but ethically they're not allowed to share any of those details. But they'll say, yeah, there's a few other offers that I am reviewing with my client if you are the listing agent. What does that signal to the buyer? Oh, okay, well, we need to come in with what's called our highest and best, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But it basically lets you know that you can't come in with a slack offer because they're not even going to look at it. As a result, that will naturally drive up the price because you want your offer to be the most attractive, right? Okay, so which gets into our second point. Really, it's about offering your highest and your best. Okay. Offering your highest and your best. And remember this, when it is a seller's market and sellers are like, look, they don't want to waste their time. Do not lowball them, please. Because what's going to happen is you're going to waste your time of getting in the car, going looking at properties. You're going to waste your real estate agent's time for he or she putting together that contract and all that time. It's ridiculous. And you're going to probably waste about 2 seconds of the seller's time because they're going to this quickly recycle or shred your offer. So just don't do it. Okay. Show some respect to the seller by offering minimum list price in this particular market. And again, let me just kind of throw a disclaimer out there. Do your own research on this, right? So don't say, well, Brandon told me to do this. Do your own research on this. This is just basically based on experience over the past at least 3 years of looking at a seller's market. Okay. So, excuse me. Like I heard a wise realtor mention not that long ago. She said, look, if you want to go ahead and sleep on it, that's fine, but you won't sleep in it. And I was like, that's money. I'm going to take that. So if you put an offer out there, or if you're thinking about putting an offer, like, let me sleep on it. That's fine, but you won't be sleeping in that house because by the time you're done sleeping on it, somebody's already gotten ratified. Okay. Now, my professional advice here, without a disclaimer, is you do want to have an appraisal contingency in place. That's my opinion. Because that appraisal contingency protects you as a buyer. So it basically makes sure that you're not overpaying for the house, right? In the case where the house value is not equivalent or more than what the contract price is. So again, that goes back to thinking about what's your strategy? What are your expectations? What are some of the non-negotiables? There are people who do not care about the appraisal because they want that house so much and they have additional funds to maybe cover the difference. And that's all well and good for those individuals, for those families. And as long as they've thought out what the financial scenario or landscape is going to look like, then that's all well and good. But in every other case and in every other scenario, you want to buy anything, that has value. So you want to make sure that the house that you're moving into at least is worth what the contract says. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Number 3, okay, and very important, is you want to have a respectable earnest money deposit, okay? Typically at least 1 to 2% of the purchase price, okay? That makes it respectable. What does that do? It shows the seller the seriousness toward the offer. Right. You're not like, all right, let me just write a $500 check. You can do that. Right. But if I'm a seller and someone's writing a $500 check as an earnest money deposit, I'm like, okay, they're probably not as serious about this offer and they're probably out looking at other stuff. So they really don't care as much. Okay. But when you have a earnest money deposit that if someone's selling their house for $450,000 and your earnest money deposit is $4,500, or if it's $9,000, you're putting some skin in the game. You're showing a level of seriousness toward the purchase, right? And that catches the seller's eye, and you never know if that could make the difference in the seller accepting your offer over someone else's. So definitely get some advice from your agent with regards to that before you move forward if you are a buyer. Number 4. Muy importante. All right. Let me just turn my computer down. I think it's making noise. Is do not get too emotionally invested. Okay. In a home before you go under contract. I can't emphasize that enough. Do not get too emotionally invested in a house before you go under contract. Why? Because it's a house. It is not your home. Shout out to Luther. Right. Okay. It's a house and it is not your home until 2 things occur. Number 1, you get ratified. And number 2, you go to closing. Okay. Then it's yours. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. So let's remember that. For those, hey, I'm a man of faith. And so for those Christians out there, those people of faith, they're like, look, I'm just going to claim it. And you throw your hands in the air and say, hallelujah, I'm going to claim it. This house is mine. Well, absolutely. While you're claiming it, I need you to email me your W-2s, your bank statements. I need to make sure your credit is straight, and I'm going to give you a strong pre-approval letter, because faith without deeds is dead. So do not remember that. Do not forget that. And you'll find that in the book of James. All right. So again, do not get too emotionally invested in that house. Okay. Because it is not your home until you get ratified, go through the process, and then you go to settlement. Finally, number 5. Okay. It is very, very, and with a deep voice, very important to have a strong pre-approval letter. Okay. Why? This shows that the loan officer, whoever's working on your loan, has done their proper due diligence in reviewing the qualifying items that are necessary for your loan, meaning items like your credit, your income documents, your asset statements, having the proper conversations with you, making sure that you qualify for that price range, that monthly payment and such, that you have an understanding of what the potential terms of the loan are going to be as an estimate. Okay. The loan officer, in my opinion, should also speak with the listing agent as necessary, just to reiterate and to remind them that they have done their due diligence and that the seller is not wasting their time in entertaining your offer. Okay. That strong pre-approval letter says that you are a ready, willing, and able buyer for that particular property, for sure. Okay. Now, make sure the other thing that you really want to do as a buyer is you want to make sure to understand the basic estimates and expectations of what's needed, right? And what do I mean by that? So when you're looking at a loan estimate that comes from the loan officer, it's going to have a breakdown on there, again, of what the potential monthly payment is, the interest rate, looking at the escrows, the purchase price, the closing costs, what your estimated cash to bring to the table is. Those things you want to have a good understanding of up front so that you know what your responsibilities are. Because as I tell people all the time, surprises are awesome for birthdays and terrible for mortgages, right? We are not in the surprise game. We are in the predictability game. You want to predict and you want to know what's coming down the pike so that you can properly prepare for it. So let's just reiterate these 5 things as we finish off here. So number 1 is you want to have a clear strategy and clear expectations. That's extremely important. Really think it through, but don't think it through too long, because the longer you think things through, you're going to potentially miss out on potential opportunities. Number 2, offer your highest and your best. Okay. Have a good discussion with your agent to make sure that you're putting forward a strong and very respectable offer. And number 3, with regards to respectability, you want to have a respectable earnest money deposit, at least 1 to 2% of the purchase price. Number 3, extremely important, is do not get too emotionally invested in that house, because it's not your home yet. It's beautiful. It's in a great area. The rooms are beautifully painted. They're big and this and that. That's fantastic. Get under contract. Get it approved. Let's get it closed. Okay? Do not do yourself a disservice by getting too emotionally invested ahead of time. And finally, okay, you want to, when you're in the very beginning of the process, have a very strong pre-approval letter, which means that, your loan officer has done his or her proper due diligence. So when your offer is presented to the seller, not only do you have the good EMD, not only do you have a very strong numeric offer on the table, but the listing agent and the seller can look at that pre-approval letter. I'm like, man, okay, these really look like some strong buyers. Let's highly consider their offer. So I really do hope that this brings you value. I hope that if you are out there in the market looking to purchase a home, I truly, with my heart, hope that you find all the success that you are looking for and you find that house of your dreams. Take care. Talk to you guys soon. God bless. Hey family, what an amazing conversation today. I look forward to seeing you again soon, and as always, to God be the glory.